I'm Julie Fei Fan Balzer, and as we continue our artful journey, today is about taking inspiration one step further by changing up materials. I'm inspired by Sigma Polke. Now, he is a German artist, and the kind of work he did was really interesting and exciting, and one of my favorites of his series was a series of paintings he did on blankets where he screen printed and then stretched them. So we're gonna kind of fake that. If you look at my Sigma Polke inspired artwork here, you'll see screen printing, this is a paint rag, this was some commercial fabric, just a lot of interesting stuff mixed together. So to get started, we need our fabric. So I have leftover project stuff, as we all have, right? I have some mono printed fabric that didn't work for the project I wanted. I have some sun printed fabric. I have some fabric I created with discharge paste. This is stamped fabric. And then this is actually heavy canvas covered in acrylic paint and stamping. And all I'm gonna do is take 2 or 3 pieces of this and bring them over to the sewing machine to unite them into one canvas. So I'm gonna be sewing through 2 very different fabrics. They're even totally different sizes, and it doesn't matter. The most important thing, though, is just you have to put 2 right sides together. So I'm gonna line up my 2 right sides. They aren't really straight edges, and you know what? That's also fine. I'm also not going to use pins. We're just complete rebels. And I'm just gonna put this under the foot and go ahead. Now I am using a straight stitch. I'm not back stitching. I'm not worried. We're breaking all the rules of sewing now. And I'm just using the edge of the foot as a guide, not because I want a certain size, but because I just want it to be relatively straight seam. Now, I like to stop every now and then, especially because I'm not pinning, and just pull it over. These fabrics are quite stiff because they're covered in acrylic paint and not even fabric paint. So it actually makes sewing through them a little easier. The one tip I would give you is change your needle after doing a project like this, if you're going back to sewing real fabric, so to speak, or unpainted fabric, because the needle will get a little bit dinged up. But if you're doing just a lot of mixed media projects, then I just use the same needle forever and ever, and it's not a problem. So I'm just gonna bring the needle up, bring the foot up, clip the thread, and now it is time for us to iron this seam out so we have our canvas to work with. When I iron 2 very different fabrics, I like to make sure that the heavier one is on the bottom, so we're putting the canvas down. Then I'm gonna press out. Now, you're gonna say, you're ironing on top of painted fabric, and the answer is yes. I have an iron that is dedicated to art making that I do not use on clothes. So I'm also ironing this in a way that no actual clothing person would do, because I'm pushing that seam out, because remember, it wasn't straight, and we do need to actually make it be straight, just force it into being straight. So I'm sort of pushing at it in a way that you're technically not supposed to do. So once this is ironed flat, then we have our new canvas, which we are ready to work with. So I'm working on a printing pad, and a printing pad is really just a layer of batting and then some fabric to make a nice soft surface. I'm gonna start with a hand-carved stamp. You could, of course, use any stamp that you wanted. I'm also using screen printing ink, and I just like that because it has a really long open time. You can also use block printing ink. You can also, you know, if you wanted to use paint, I just don't like to use paint with my stamp. So I'm using a brayer, and I'm just brayering out some white paint. You see, I run the brayer in a single direction, and then I apply it to my stamp, just like that. And then I'm gonna go ahead, and this is why I have the printing pad, because it's a nice soft surface where I can start to add some additional texture and bridge these 2 disparate fabrics and pull them together. So there's my image. And I can continue to keep stamping all around the fabric as I wish, but I really wanna get to the screen printing. So I'm gonna go ahead and just grab my screen. So I take my screen, and you can get screens from different sellers on Etsy. You can buy them in art stores. You can make them yourselves. There are lots of ways to do it. So I'm gonna take my screen. I've put a bead of screen printing ink. I take my handy dandy tool, and I'm just gonna scrape down. And I wanna make sure that I'm flooding that screen with a lot of screen printing ink. I do like to go in 2 directions just to make sure it's really well done. Then I'm gonna pull my screen off, and check it out. So you're gonna wanna let this dry. It takes about 24 hours to be dry to the touch and about maybe 3 days to fully cure. So now we're gonna stretch our canvas. I have just an empty frame, and I'm gonna go ahead and place this down, and then all I do is I take a staple gun and I fold over an edge, staple it, and I just always wanna work in opposites constantly. And then when I'm done, I have a canvas that I can continue to work on, or I can call completely done.
Brother International Corporation is the maker of the Scan and Cut home and hobby cutting machine with a built-in scanner and is known for supplying innovative sewing and embroidery machines. ScanandCut.com